What's up, dude?
You got to have you can't hardwire that thing in.
We're live.
That's fine.
It's no, I mean you can, but so we had a digital setup and we kept having glitches, so we just went analog. So you just start recording, and then take the SD out, and you don't have any issues. We haven't had any issues. The only issues we had is we had like a corrupt card one time, but that was just because it was swapping hands too much. But now,
because we do our sales meetings down there, and the same thing, the internet will just go out while we're live
yeah,
streaming.
dude, it's not worth it, dude. Like, it's not. I've lost. We probably
like 4 episodes.
No way.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah, which is not horrible, but still, when they're really good ones, then you're like, you can't get that guest back here, and you can't recreate the real.
No, that's the worst.
We lost 4 episodes out of 120 episodes. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
That's how long you've been on? 120 episodes? Holy shit, dude.
How many have you done?
170? 175?
I think I was on like episode like 10 or something. 15.
You were on early episodes.
Early.
Yeah. So welcome back.
I don't
A
even
lot
know
has changed since then.
I don't even know if you're doing video back then.
Oh, man, I was, but I had like my phone in the corner.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, fun stuff. It has changed a lot. That was pre-pandemic.
Yeah, that was in Jim's old. That was in Cohab.
Yeah,
it was Cohab. Little shitty studio in the corner, but I'm not knocking it. We started this in 19.
Okay.
I think the first episode. I want to say the first episode went live in 19.
Yeah.
In like November of 19, but we probably did it in. I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was barely doing. I was trying to get like 2 in a month.
Yeah.
And when we started this, I thought that I needed to have 2 people on because you and Nick Herzog on.
Yeah.
And I thought we had to have 2 people on because I didn't know if I could carry a conversation long enough to.
Yeah.
And then I realized real quick, oh shit, it just needs to be one person.
Yeah.
And if it is 2 people, it's just going to be, it's fun, you know, but it goes longer, and also like the direction of the conversation changes so much.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you like prefer listening to one person talk or 2, or like do you like 2 guests? Or what?
Good question.
If you listen to podcasts,
I think that if the people know what they're doing and they won't talk over each other, that's always the thing. Because you get like 3-4 people.
You listen to like some of those podcasts with comedians. They're all drinking and shit. It's just a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
But
2019, man, you were single and didn't have any kids.
Yeah. None of that. None of that. Complete life change, dude. But I love it, man. I love it.
I know.
Yeah, it's one of those things, man. And shit, you just launched the brokerage. Mm-hmm. And where y'all at now? Let's talk about that, dude. Because you've done a lot since I met you. Because a lot of people that listen and watch this may not even know you, or they may know of you, but like you've done a lot since I met you. Like, Let's go over that shit.
That's why you tell me what you want to talk
about.
I mean,
you started you were a school teacher when I met you.
Yeah.
And then you bought a bar.
Yeah.
And then everything else you've done, just you tell me, because that's like a whole.
Well, I think that now, I have a lot more self-awareness now about what kind of makes me tick and what fulfills me and the role I should play in things. So, I mean, when I got married, in fact, we celebrate our 20-year anniversary this summer.
Nice.
And so we got married right after college. Neither of us had jobs. I went to grad school, still didn't know what I was going to do, and I just went into teaching because I needed to get a paycheck.
So you didn't have any, you weren't really, excited about that or motivated to do that?
No, I mean, my mom was a school teacher. When I was in college, I think I started my 3rd year and didn't even have a path or what I was getting my degree in.
Yeah. So
I was like, well, I'll just do education. I was dating Laurie. She was in education. So we kind of, that's kind of what ended up happening. And, I think that, knowing how I am now, a couple things. One, I don't do very well having a boss. That's one. Not saying that I can't work well with others, and and I don't have voices in my life that are over me. I do have that, but yeah. So I didn't do well working for other people, and for me, there was no building in education. Right? I mean, it was like. There was no ladder to climb, really. And this part of the problem with education is that the ladder you climb is to become the principal. Well, most people that are really good in the classroom make horrible principals.
Yeah.
And so that's how you kind of hire from within. They're not managing it. Yeah. And so the best ran school would probably get somebody that has experience managing a company and bringing them in. So Sure, the educators will love to hear that, but that's just my
It's what it
opinion.
is, man. Yeah.
And so, so I was doing that. I actually started. I got into real estate. I was flipping some houses. No, I think I bought my first flip house right before school was about to start back, and on my spreadsheet, I was going to make a profit which equaled what I would make a year in teaching.
Okay.
And so I asked my wife, I said, can I stay home or can I leave teaching, try it for 1 year, see if we can make it work. And I quit my teaching job. It was July of 2012, I believe. And literally the next day, she found out she was pregnant with our second kid. So that was some motivation there. And so I flipped that house and I made good money and realized that half of my profit was going to be taken in taxes. I didn't plan on that.
Yeah.
And so then I shifted and said, well, instead of flipping houses, I'm just going to buy and hold houses. And when I started doing that, I started having investors wanting me to manage their properties. And so that was really my first company, was a property management company that still runs today. Probably, manage about 450 houses, 500 houses, somewhere around there. And that team is still going, and it's a great company, and I have good leaders over there. And so that's where it started.
Yeah, and then it somehow progressed. I guess you saw value in that. But then you wanted to get into dealing with. How did that work? Because you went from dealing with tenants and management to dealing with people buying houses.
Well, my first year and a half, my office was in a guest house behind our house.
Yeah.
And it made a lot of logistical problems because I didn't want tenants to know where I lived. And so everything was done out on the road. So I bought a building and hired a full-time person before, it was a year and a half before I even made money off the company until we built it up to where it made sense. And so, so I eventually handed, I was helping owners or investors buy and sell properties. And then I had started a sales company, and I didn't have any, it was just me just doing it by myself, and I was still having to produce. I had some agents wanting me to join, and then it became a problem because I didn't have anything to provide them. And so I was just spinning my wheels, and I was frustrated because I needed to go out there and make money because I wasn't making money off of them because they were brand new agents, didn't know what they were doing. And so I actually told them, hey, I'm going to regroup. You go to a different company and, let me figure out what I'm going to do. And in 2017, I started looking into brokerages, and I ended up buying the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services franchise for this market. Through that, I partnered with someone here, Adam Lytle, who's just a really sharp business mind, high character, great guy. And so we launched November 2017. We just celebrated our 6th year. So
that's
as
crazy,
a brokerage,
man.
Yeah. So,
and you have how many agents do you have right now?
I would have to go check again. We're probably at 140 agents. Yeah, we have an Alexandria market that we launched a few years ago, and it's actually doing really well as well. It's kind of hit a growth spurt, and so that's it. So
are you passionate about real estate now? Is it more just about business, or like being? Because I've noticed about knowing you for a while that you're like extremely I don't know what the word is for it. You're all about the business, like in the culture and operations, and I know Adam's like the more analytical guy, but I feel like you're always on the up and up, like looking for new ways to grow and things like that. Whereas that seems to be always your focus. Is it hyper, like is it related solely to real estate? Do you take that approach on everything?
Yeah. No, I think that I am passionate about real estate because I enjoy it and I invest in it. But I think it's more, for me, it's more of a business mindset. Yeah. I think that, I would never even come close to being as smart as Adam is in real estate, on the operational side, or just the technical aspect of how to deal in real estate. He's just really, really wise. And so for me, it's more of, getting the team to work, setting goals, getting the right people in place.
Yeah.
And so that's really what makes it tick. So just this morning at 9:30 we meet and we go over all of our goals and what we've done to hit those goals. And so
do you think that's conducive? Because I feel like a lot of people talk about that, but or they set those things and they really don't put any more. I see that a lot. I see that in a lot of business operations too. Like people talk about goals and set things, but they really don't put in the systems to see those through. You know what I mean? They're just like, we need to meet these numbers. And then there you go. You know what I mean? Kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, there has to be a framework. There has to be a leadership framework in place, and I feel like any time that there's friction or frustration, then, it's usually either a incompetent person that's dropping the ball or the framework's not there to hold them accountability and give them a clear path. Usually what it is. Sometimes it's just bad character.
Yeah.
Both things are in place and they're just, somebody
Not
needs to be fired.
Fit. Yeah,
exactly.
not a good fit.
So normally that's usually what it comes down to. And so, as frustrating as it is, and that's kind of my new thing the past 6 months or 7 months has been on my personal mindset and framework on viewing those instances as a learning opportunity. And so, my frustration when something's not going the way I want it to go, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it might have taken me a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get over it. Now it is, happens in a couple minutes.
What would be an example of that?
Oh, geez. An example of that would be, I think a lot of it comes down to, so in our system, we use something called the 4DX. It's the 4 Disciplines of Execution.
Okay.
And it's a famous business book. But the 4 Disciplines of Execution, and now I'm on the spot, I might not get it all right, but it's...
We got some help over here.
Yeah. So the 4 Disciplines of Execution. So one is, most important is WIGs, what we call them, wildly important goals. So everybody in my company, we have a business wildly important goal, and it's like, increase profits from X to Y by the end of the year, right? Then underneath that, each one of my team members have their own wildly important goals.
Okay.
And then underneath that, would be one of those, I know what they are now. So lead measures. Lead measures are the activities to accomplish the goal. So if you want to think of it this way, the book uses this analogy is we're all part of this war. Well, what are we doing to win the battles that are eventually going to win the war, right?
Yeah.
So we have lead measures, and then the lag measures is the results. And so that's usually what I focus on, what the lag measures. And when the lag measures, which is the results of the lead measures, aren't adding up,
Gotcha.
then I can say, well, something's broken.
Yeah.
Well, let's dig in and find out what's broken, right? And, usually... what I found probably the weakest thing or the thing that has needed the most attention in my organizations over the past year have been the accountability.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You seem to be talking like one of those things where you hear that word thrown around a lot, and I've talked about it too, but like you seem to be a product of that, holding all those people in whatever.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if I would even use the word accountable. I think it is setting up a fair way, a system that's fair to the employee, fair to the company, and fair to me as the owner.
Yeah.
We all have to win, right? And so I feel like most people, if they are given a clear picture of what they're supposed to be doing, and then they know that every week they're going to come in and have to show their results, then they either quit or they do their job.
Right.
And so that's really, and not only do their job, but they're excited about their job.
Yeah, because it becomes difficult whenever you're running a business and you don't really spell out those intentions up front, and then you're just kind of trying to figure it out. Or also like, I've seen a lot where people, they don't want to delegate things, or they do, but they don't really state what those clear expectations are. They just say, we need to get this done.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, who specifically is going to do it? Because unfortunately, everyone's not like you, and they're not going to take full initiative to figure out a fucking spreadsheet and a breakdown of how this needs to operate. More, it's like you have to sit down and say, okay, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing this, and play on each other's strengths or whatever the
well, I think that
position
you just
is,
said
right?
it right. Is that your best, when you hit your sweet spot, it's when everybody on the team is doing things that they have the ability to do.
Yeah.
Not only have the ability to do, because I can go and do certain things that just drain me and it leads to burnout, right? But it's things that I thrive at doing. And so part of that is knowing everybody's, we use the Enneagram assessment, but it's pretty much just a personality or where your strengths are. And so like when
Do
we
you think
hire,
that's that accurate? Like do you put a lot of
100%.
stake in that?
Oh, 100%.
Really?
Yes.
So you use that to then decide what position that person needs to hold? More like focused on what they need to, I guess, what they need to work on, even though they're in said position.
Yeah, I don't know, because there's another assessment, the Strength Finder, and that's great too. But I feel so you really have to start with what the job is,
right.
The job description, and then I can know based off a job description what Enneagram type or what Strength Finder's assessment's going to do that job well.
Okay.
And so we actually make them do those assessments before we even interview them.
Okay.
Because I don't want to waste my time.
Can't you
or their
bullshit those
time.
assessments? I mean, don't you feel like you can bullshit those assessments?
Well, I think that those assessments allow me to ask the right questions.
Okay,
in the
and
interview.
then you can verify if they're full of shit or not.
Yeah. So then I can I can ask pointed questions because I know what I can ask scenarios, and I know like what frustration looks like for, say, a 1 on the Enneagram versus a 7 on the Enneagram, right? And so yeah, it's great. I love it.
I don't even know where I fall on that.
Yeah,
thing.
you need to take it. So I feel like in fact, at
before.
Berkshire Hathaway, every one of our agents have an Enneagram assessment on file.
Yeah.
Because it's the same way, right? I know a 1 who is going to be somewhat introverted, has to have order, does not involve in chaos. They don't really do well at creating processes. They do unbelievable at following a process, but you can't go ask them to create. Right? And so then you take a 1, if I was going to say, all right, here's a stack of 500 names and numbers, you need to cold call these people. They wouldn't get through the first name, right? Or they would get through 1 and go to the bathroom and cry, right? So now a 7 or an 8 or a 3, which is a high achiever, they would blast through it, right? And they wouldn't get offended by it.
Do you still believe in that in the cold call thing? Like, or is it more a volume thing or like an approach of marketing?
Well, I mean, I think that it comes down again to your personality, and that's why I think that we have a great trainer, Misty, on staff who really digs into what drives you and makes you tick, and she will give each agent a runway based off of that, and so I think that is a big thing, and I think that that's a mistake that a lot of brokerages make. They say, well, this is just one way to do it.
That's
and
what
I
I was going to say. Even in the interview process, like if you have the same exact loaded questions for everyone, you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense if you kind of vet them a little bit beforehand and say, okay, what do I'm dealing with walking in the room? And then, okay, I know now they may be better fit for this scenario, and that's how I'm going to drive these questions to see how they react. Because I'm managing people now for 8-9 years. I don't know, a long fucking time. Actually, almost probably over 10. And it's like, I've noticed that there's some type of people that you can say, and I've learned this too. One, you have to always remember that I know you know this, they're never going to give a shit like you do.
Yeah.
They don't have any stake in it, so they're not going to. You can't expect them to, and you can't get upset when they don't, which is very hard to swallow for most people, especially small business owners. I see that every day. They get so upset. I'm like, dude, you're paying them for a task. That's what they're going to do. You shouldn't expect anything more than that. And if you get that, then maybe you should, give them a raise or something. Now they're taking initiative. But I've noticed that I've hired people that I would expect to go do the same thing and say, look, it's this easy. You do this, this, and this, and here you go. And then they can't do it, man. They have to have processes. And
I think that's why I want to eliminate. We're never going to be 100% on hiring, right?
No one is.
But we've gotten a pretty high percentage by knowing what they're going to excel at and not excel at, and what's going to frustrate them and not frustrate them.
Yeah.
And so, but and even going back to that word accountability, this is something that my coach taught me. I have a business coach, and he said, this is great. He said, if you ask for permission, it's not accountability. Or he would say, if you ask for permission, it's not micromanaging. So if you go and say, hey, I see that you need to work on this area, and then say, will you allow me to help you get to that?
Okay.
And then you say, how would you like me to follow up and see how you're progressing?
Yeah.
Right. And so then you kind of let them, so when you do call them and say, hey, it's been a week and I see this isn't done, they've already given you the permission to do that.
Yeah. I have noticed that's something I've been bad about is, over the years, just expecting someone to do something because I said it and I didn't really give them the, I hate that fucking word, tools. But, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't give them the playing field or the format or whatever.
They weren't equipped.
Yeah, they weren't equipped. Yes, they weren't equipped. I just expected them to figure it out, and unfortunately, that's not the case of most people. You know, for me, I'm the type of person I'm going to figure it out because like it's sink or swim, right?
Yeah.
But then some people, they just need a little nudge. You know, it's no fault of that's just the type of person they are. Give me a little nudge. Where I've noticed also that like you have to be careful on how you ask people to do things because at the same time, a lot of people put emotion into task, which is interesting to me because I don't. You know, I just see it as a task. We're going to get through this and go to the next thing, get through this. And sometimes I can keep you detached from what it is like you're doing, but at the same time, I'm passionate about what I do, but I don't put emotion in one task after another task because I just feel like it's not efficient, I guess, one, and also two, like it's just something that's going to lead to the next thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, look, when you're managing multiple people, you just have to know how to, you have to know how to praise them, how to reprimand them, how to set up goals, right? And you really could go into a deep dive. And I'm kind of a personality nerd because there's like a bunch of assessments that I like. And then the newest one, and this is a whole nother rabbit trail, but the new one me and my wife just did was primal questions or a primal fear. That there are 7 primal questions that everybody possesses that's shaped out of your childhood. Okay. And those 7 questions are the underlying question that we look through, the filter that we look everything through. And so I think it's
Josh, can you pull those up? 7 primal questions.
Am I safe? Am I secure? Am I loved? Am I wanted? Am I successful? Am I good enough? And do I have a purpose? Okay. And it's pretty crazy because when you start looking at that, and what's crazy about me, even my wife, she said, yours is, am I successful? And when I actually dug into it and started reading it, so that's the affirmation of it. That's the affirmation. And so instead of asking the question, it's the same thing as, am I safe? Am I secure? Yeah. And so, but what's cool about it is, so for me, people think it's, am I successful? My best friend and my wife thought that. But mine is actually, am I wanted?
How did you stumble
There's an assessment I went through, but then there's like a video and kind of an assignment, not an assignment, but a kind of a what are you thinking? The questions you ask yourself, they call it the scramble, right? Whenever I'm in a bad place, my mind goes to a scramble. Okay. Right. And it's, so if someone is, are you secure? Usually it has to do with financial. So their scramble is, do I have enough money? What's going to happen if, this deal doesn't go through? I'm going to have to sell my house. My wife's going to leave me. My kids aren't going to be able to do this. Right. That's the scramble. Right. And so, so then what you want to do is surround yourself with people that know who you are. So the whole reason me and Laurie were going through it was, hers is, am I loved? Okay. And so my job is to reaffirm her that she's loved. Right. Right. And that's birthed out of, being the youngest child out of 3. Maybe she wasn't heard as a kid. She wasn't, she was maybe not neglected, but her opinion didn't matter. Right. And so for me, I don't know, I need to go to therapy to figure out why it's mine. But they do say that the middle child is a lot of times fall on Q4, am I wanted? Because the middle child tends to, the middle child syndrome is what they call it, right? Is you just kind of feel like, dude. So it's really, so for me, I went through this and did a deep dive, and I'm like, okay, I'll start with my leaders. They need to do it as well, because I need to know as a leader, what is the underlying question they're waking up every day asking themselves?
Like, why do you think it is? Someone way smarter than us come up with this, right? Like, also, like, why do you think it is that it's only 7? Why can't it be 8? Or why can't it be 6? Like, where do they find these? Like,
they might have added on to it. I don't know how they actually got this and got to this to these 7, but it's very.
I think it is interesting. I had no idea. I've never heard this one, but I like that you brought it up because I struggle with that. Like, I don't know. Did you know? Were you aware of that? Or did you think it was something else too?
So what's
when they
crazy
said something,
is,
were you like, that must be mine too?
Yeah. So what's crazy is the past week I've been reflecting on instances in my life where my emotions were really high, or vivid instances I can remember feeling trauma from, or feeling betrayal, or feeling left out, and those were all like, that's what it had to do with. It never had to do with being scared about money. It never had to be about, well, did they think I was, I have a lot of confidence, so it wasn't, am I good enough? But it always comes down to, am I wanted? Do the people around me want me there?
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I don't know. I'm not.
But here's what's crazy about it is that whatever our question is, we view it as a negative way for us.
Right.
But we turn that. So in other words, my question is, am I wanted? And so I spend my time as a leader wanting people to feel included. Mm-hmm. And so because the people that have am I wanted, they're really good team builders. They're bringing people in and making them feel accepted or feel a part. And so like the am I safe? Somebody that might have grew up in a household that there was a lot of fighting, or that they just didn't feel safe. And so early on, that's their question, and they bring that to adulthood, and they're the ones that are just overly cautious about everything. Yeah. Right. And so overly secure people are hoarders of their money. They think that, they probably grew up in a poor household, and now they are overly cautious about making sure that they never run out of money. Yeah. So it's pretty interesting. So that
is interesting. Well, I do. Do you ever wonder, like, I always think about this. I'm like, okay, are we getting so either complacent, successful, or just bored to where we start looking into all this? Because when you're in like grind mode and you're busting your ass, you don't worry about any of this stuff. You know what I mean? Well, like, when do you start reflecting? Do you think it's you slow down and you start realizing what really matters? But I feel like it takes you to get to a certain point in your life before you can even slow down and start reflecting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think that now for sure, because we have, if I think about my kids, they haven't felt needy a day in their life.
Right.
And so we do have a very comfortable culture where we have eliminated pain and obstacles. Mm-hmm. And so when you're going through, and I feel like if that tension's not there when they're growing up, when they turn into adults, they're just going to be blindsided when they get in the real world. Right.
It's unfortunate, man. It's like a give and take, because you can't be too far one way or the other way. It's like balancing, right? You gotta show them some sort of failure and fatigue, whereas also you don't have to make their life a living hell. It's weird.
Well, and I think part of that is being transparent, and just being like, hey, this is what we deal with, and of course that comes with appropriate ages. My oldest is 15 years old, and we're having a blast with him because he is like, it's just crazy parenting a teenager, and and I can see how I can see how one day I want us to be best friends, right? And obviously that's a whole nother issue whenever parents try to be best friends too early. Yeah. But I can see it because we enjoy having time with him. All of our kids, we're going to take them on a trip after their 8th grade year, 4th, 9th grade. And so he wanted to go to New York City. So it was just me and my wife and him, and we just had a blast, just the funnest time. And so, but even him, it's like, he hasn't had to worry about having nice clothes. Right. He's had his own room his whole life, pretty much. Like, and I grew up sharing a room with my brother, and we didn't have a lot of money. Yeah. And so, it's just so it just makes you think.
Well, it is interesting. I mean, it's just funny how it plays out. It's like you want to do the most for your kids. That way they don't go through the same things as you do, but you also have to be careful that if you do too much, then it's like I feel like it's an uphill battle no matter what.
Yeah. Well, then it's like, even I was thinking about this the other day. With AI and technology being so fast in their adulthood, like we can't even imagine right now like my 4-year-old.
No.
We can't even imagine when he gets into the workforce in 20 years what it's going to be like, right?
We couldn't imagine. Like, look at our predecessors. Like, look at our our parents. Like, they couldn't imagine what we're going through now. And we couldn't imagine if you were to take this technology and put it in my hands at 8 years old, I would lose my shit.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, think about it. Like, but it's something that's you're groomed with, I guess. So it's a slow trickle. It's not like a dump. We can't imagine it because it would be like a dump. But if it's like a slow trickle into your development, then it's something that's just there.
Well, and I think that, and this is where everything's been flipped upside down. The paradigm shift that's going to happen over the next few years is that when we were growing up, our parents, in their mind, right, in our parents' mind, for us to be successful, what career did we need to go into?
Law,
be a lawyer,
architect, doctor,
all these things, right? And you're using your mind. Yeah. Well, I've seen so many videos and read blogs over the past year, 2 years, of how, these people are like, oh, we just saved like hundreds of thousands of dollars by letting go our attorney that we had on retainer. Yeah. Because AI has given us better answers than our attorney that was on retainer, right? Yeah. And then self-diagnosing with, whatever your ailments are at home. And so I feel like the people that are going to have the best careers and be paid the most money in the future are going to actually be people that have technical skills.
Most definitely. Yeah. Most definitely. But on the advert of that, you mean technical and like 100% in technology or in everything?
No, just like being able to create with their hands or be able to fix things, right? I mean, you think of that. How many mechanics
do you know? It's a lost art, man. It's a lost art. When can
crazy.
You tell, like, our entire generation, no one ever said I wanted to be a mechanic. Actually, I did. I did it for a year and then went straight into the oil field. I was like, fuck, this is not enough money. You know what I mean?
So I do have, out of property management, I've had a few companies start, like roofing, plumbing, HVAC, and I'm just thinking, like, AI can never replace those trades.
No.
And so you're always going to have
until it becomes sentient in a something that represents us.
Yeah.
Right. Well, when it comes to that, awesome. Then it can.
I would buy a robot that could do my plumbing.
We're not far from it. See, it's listening now. It's listening now.
Oh, that was my fat wrist hitting my watch.
You could say that. I think it was something else.
It might have. Maybe it didn't hit it. So no, I think that they're interrupting. They don't like this conversation how it's going.
No, but it's
to
funny.
The millions of people that'll listen to this.
Well, it's funny that so many, like, this conversation is brought up a lot, and especially now because we've seen it evolved over the past year. I was just having this conversation earlier with the client. It's we've seen it evolved over this past year. And I think it's important that in my industry, in what I do, it is very, very beneficial, but it could be immediately detrimental to your business, because what's going to happen is if you come 100% dependent upon it, then everyone else in your industry is dependent upon it. Maybe it's your competition, maybe it's whatever. Then everything overlaps and it's all the same thing. And then no one's creating anything anymore.
Sure.
So nothing's unique, nothing's organic. So I am pushing against it. I like it. I like the idea of it being a tool to guide you. Yeah. But I do not think it's a great idea for you to use something to replace whatever it is you're doing. Yeah. Like, I don't think it should 100%.
Well, I mean, you'll never be able to replace human connection.
Right, of course.
And, that's always been the thing in our industry. Thinking back to 10, 15 years ago, Zillow came out, and, the real estate industry's changed so much because everybody has all of the, back in the day, the brokers controlled listings, and they would have a big old box of keys at their office. And if you want to go show a property, you came and checked out a key, right? And there was no internet, right? They would come to your office and pull a list of what you had listed, right? And so now with the information so rampant, but I'm actually on the school of thought that the more noise in the marketplace, the more important a human connection is. Someone you can trust, right?
Yeah.
Someone you can say, hey.
Are you talking about if it's like a hotter market?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just saying, hey, I saw this on the news. I Googled this house. You know, this is saying my house is worth this. This is saying my house is worth this. Like having someone to really guide you that you trust.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
right?
essentially, that's what a real estate agent is, a consultant, right?
And I think that people will pay for that trust, and they'll pay for that, you know, that advice.
There's a lot of people that say, I don't need one. I can do it myself. Yes, you can do anything yourself. I have this conversation. My wife's a proponent of like, she's like, well, I don't understand this, and this because you can just do it yourself. I'm like, yeah. I can just replace the transmission in your car in the driveway if I really want to. It's just a matter of at what point do you decide you're going to delegate that or you're going to do it yourself? You know what I mean? And then it's like, what experience do you have to like source that information?
Yeah.
Like, yes, you can do a lot of research, but is there specific scenarios you've been in? And this applies to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like our industry. She's like, it just seems crazy to me that this is what we do for a living. Sometimes it's basically we're selling air, but we're assisting people through these processes in their business. And I'm like, yeah, because either one, they don't have time. Like it's inefficient to stop their operations of what they're doing to stop and try to focus on this, whereas they just will delegate that to someone. And that's what it is. The same thing with plumbing. You could Google how to fix your toilet, you know, but what if you fuck it up, you know? And then it's like, okay, well, I haven't been in a scenario. There's no YouTube video about me messing this up, and then how do I fix that? You know, it's just like, here's how to do it. Well, what if you fuck it up? You know, like there's a lot of things to where, yes, I think those things are needed. And I wanted to ask you that because like, there's so many people that say, well, I don't need that person, you know, in your industry. And also there's so many people that, I don't know. There's just going to be people that like want to watch this because of what you are in this market, and they think it's important to get you know that information from you. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, what are your thoughts on selling what it is, the services that you provide?
Yeah, well, I mean, the truth is there are some people that you don't want, right? I mean, there are in any industry. There are going to be people that are in it for the money, that are in it, you know, for their own glory. But you know, whenever I think of real estate specifically, just because I'm in that industry, you know, the heart of a real estate professional is being a servant. Yeah. Right. And that's what it is. And the real estate professionals or real estate agents, whatever you want to call them, the ones that focus on service and providing high level of service, growing their knowledge, obviously growing your knowledge because it helps you serve your clients better. They're not going to have any problem. It doesn't matter what the economy's doing. They're going to not have any trouble finding clients to help. Yeah. And so, but the ones that are chasing paychecks and just trying to, you know, get the next closing to the table.
I see that so much. Really, I really do see that so much. And I know it's important. I know, like, I'm in, like, this has been something, and I've told you about this a little bit, but like I'm such against how some people in that industry market themselves. Yeah. Because it's like, I don't think it's that important to boast on how much volume you did to think that that's something that will make someone pick you. Whereas it's more to boast on this is how I connected with my client and how we delivered anything. And the fact of that you did X amount of volume per year really doesn't make a shit, you know, in my opinion, because
it does, you know, when people are playing that game, it's really a peer-to-peer.
I understand, game. But that's the problem, right? Because of the peer-to-peer thing, it's just a competition.
You're not making money off
You're spending time on worrying about your clout in the market instead of spending time on investing in your potential clientele or your previous clientele. Yeah. And that's what I've noticed. And that's what because I told you, I was like, man, I really want to teach like a fucking seminar on this shit because I want to say, look, there's a way to brand yourself. There's a way to market yourself. And the most important thing you need to stop and look at is you do not need to look like anyone else. Yeah. And if you're all running to chase the same fucking rabbit, that at some point, like, one, you're all going to look like the same person, you know? Whereas if that one person veers off and goes a different direction, then it's a whole new race because guess what? No one's watching them, you know, and they're the one getting things done. It's just, it's very interesting. And it's like that in a lot of industries. It's not just real estate. It's just any time where you have a self-employed individual that's marketing themselves, you know, and they don't really have, like, there's no playbook.
Yeah. Well, I think that, you know, for me, and this is my school of thought, and look, it comes down to personality and a lot of things, but I feel like if you want to set yourself apart, and let's be honest, this is really in the industry as well, but if you want to set yourself apart, then be authentic. Yeah. And that's what's going to resonate with people.
And here's the thing about that. That's preached so much that everyone's authenticity is still misconstrued right now because they're still basing that on something they've seen.
Well,
You know
so
what I mean?
then my question is, the actions we take, is it to shine the light on someone else or shine the light on us?
Exactly. And most of
And
the
so
time,
a lot
it's
of
us.
times we're shining light on us,
Hey.
even though it's under the umbrella of being authentic.
And this is where I wanted to bring this up. I thought this. I was like, I'm going to bring this up if this conversation ever comes up. So now I just did. So this is great.
All right.
So when someone dies,
Okay.
immediately what you see is a flood of posts of that person and the individual that dies. Instead of just posting a picture of that individual, we still want to have some attachment to that attention. And I think that's an issue. And think about it. Like if your loved one dies, you don't post a picture of them. You post a picture of you and them. And it's because we want relevancy. Even in the darkest days of it being using someone's non-existence anymore to still make us feel relevant. And that's an issue, man. It's a disconnection. And that happens in a lot of things. It's not just that. It's like, hey, a buyer just, congratulations to my buyer, and you're in the photo, like, what the fuck? Like,
Or the yard signs with your picture taking up half the sign.
Yeah, it's anything,
Yeah, so I
man.
think that, look, and
I'm not hating on any of it. It's something that it's uncharted territory that we have to realize that, okay, these things, this is how you operate. And most importantly, to get to that end goal, you have to focus on whoever it is you're serving.
Yeah.
And if you're not putting all of your focus on them and you're putting some on you, then you're not to your fullest potential, what you could do for that potential individual and other people.
Yeah. One of the best resources I have, and we've gone through it with our agents, is Donald Miller has a curriculum called Story Branding, and he has a book called Story Branding. He has several books, which Donald Miller is an author that goes way back. I remember reading him when I was like 19 years old. He was writing Christian philosophy books, and they started writing business books. But story brand, the whole concept of story branding is that every story has a hero, and we are the hero of our own stories.
Yeah.
But if we are going to be in a sales position, the winning...
I'm extremely particular when it comes to my vehicles, and I only recommend those who are the same way. That's why I always recommend SBC Autos. They take pride in their inventory, from badass four-wheel drives, clean classic cars, and even your everyday grocery getters. They have it all. No hassle, no BS. SBCautos.com.
The people that win are really good at making their clients the hero, right? Because then he also says that, if you look at the parts of a story, there's a hero, but then there's also a helper, right? For every Luke Skywalker, there's a Yoda, right? And the most successful and longest winning people in sales positions, especially in real estate, are the ones that position themselves as the helper. That they are shining the light on the hero. And so what happens is when we take off the Yoda hat and put on the Luke Skywalker hat and start talking about how great we've done, it turns the client base off, right? Because they're like, well, wait, am I the hero or are they the hero?
Right. And am I doing this to pay them? Like, not are they doing this to help me?
Exactly.
And that's what happens. And that's what I've noticed. I noticed that in multiple industries. Doing this for 8 years now is looking at how everyone interacts, because I'm analytical, but I'm culture analytical. Like, I pay attention. Like, I don't look at the stats and the numbers. I look at the behavior. And then I analyze the behavior and I say, okay, if I can market an individual or a company, how I'm going to do it different than anyone else and still achieve a goal. One, I need to do it in a way that's never been done, or a unique way that has been done, but just a little, maybe put a twist on it, but also looking at that. And it's just interesting that so many people, the ones that rise to the very top and they're the pillar of that, they're not paying attention to any of that nonsense. They're just looking at the end goal, like you said, of whoever it is they're serving.
Yeah, and so that's another big thing that I see, and this, again, in any industry, it's just real estate's in my face.
Right.
But the trap of focusing on things you have no control over.
Yep.
And that is just a huge, that goes into your personal life, everything. But if I'm talking to an agent or an employee or whatever that's frustrated, right? I'm just digging in. Well, all of your feelings are coming from things you have no control over.
Yeah.
So let's go through what you can control in this instance, right? You can't control the government changing the interest rates. right?
I was going to bring that up next because everyone's going to mention that.
Right, you can't control the pandemic happening.
Yeah.
You can't control all these things, right? So then what is it that's in your control?
You
and
can't.
and it usually comes down to just very few actionable items, right? And so I tell my agents all the time, and they know this, but like we can control 3 things. There's only 3 things we have control over: our attitude, what we do with our time, and how we spend our time, right? Or our actions that we spend in our calendar, our time that we set. And that's really what we can control. Other than that, we can't. We can't control another agent on the other end of the deal. We can't control our clients and how they react. We can't control all the process. We can't control any of that.
Well, you can't use any of those elements that you can't control as excuses for why you're not doing anything either.
Yeah.
Because like you're going to have to, like, in any industry, whether you're doing customer relationships and sales, is you have to roll with the punches and you have to adapt. So like, interest rates go up, guess what? Your deliverables better go up. You know what I mean? Like, you better start approaching things differently and spend more time on customer relationship than you did before, because you didn't have to as much because the struggle wasn't there. When there's a lot more competition, everyone seems to either rise to the occasion or fold. Same thing with COVID. Like, processes changed, the entire paradigm shift. And if you didn't choose to go along with that, guess what? You were left in the dust, and you were blaming that. It's just kind of like the autonomous car and the truck driver. Eventually, the truck driver is going to be obsolete.
Yep.
And when that happens, they're going to say, well, they took my job. Well, you knew it was coming for 50 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things. It's interesting. And it's what I've noticed, especially in my industry, is that I'm just like, you know what? A lot of people can do this at home. A lot of people can do this on their device. A lot of people in other businesses do this. But I'm going to be the hardest motherfucking worker in the room. Like, and if I'm that, then at least I'm going to be probably one of the last ones to be killed. You know what I mean? And continue to adapt along the way, you know?
Yeah. And I think that you said, you can't use those things out of your control as an excuse. But the problem is that we have ingrained in our mindset and the way that we think and our devices. I mean, we are literally letting poison in from the moment we wake up. And, the biggest, just the huge trap that I see in the real estate profession, but again, I see it everywhere. But we like to compare ourselves to other people, right? And we are
it's in our face all day long.
Yeah. So what we're doing though is that since nobody's being authentic on Facebook or whatever the cool thing is now. I mean, I'm old, so I'm on Facebook and MySpace. But what we do is we compare our true selves, because we're the only ones that know our true selves. We compare our true selves to someone else's best self, because they're only putting their best self on social media.
Yeah, of course.
And so it's always a losing manner, right?
You're setting yourself up for failure.
Or the pendulum swings the other way, right? Because if we do that, then we become defeated. The other one is that we see someone who's struggling, and then we compare how we're doing it better. So then we become prideful, right? And so it's just always just this
what's
here.
Funny about all this is, if we were in a society that was horrible and that we were in anguish and low wages and not enough going on, it's just like culture and just pure shambles, we wouldn't care about any of this shit. Yeah, we're doing so well, man.
Yeah,
as a whole, as a society in this country and how we operate, we're doing so well. Yeah, to start microanalyzing all these things, it's just interesting to me, because I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that, I'm looking at that, and I'm like, while we're all arguing about this shit, we're not at war. I mean, kind of, we're dabbling in other people's war, like we're amongst ourselves, because we don't have anyone else to fight right now.
Well, and I think that's really the struggle's not there. And when you think of generations that are refined, they're refined through a struggle, right? And I think this is a analogy I heard a guy share one time, and he just said, the only reason a butterfly is able to fly when it breaks out is because he builds muscles breaking out of the cocoon. Yeah. And so he's in there, and it's like he has to struggle to break out, and that gives him the muscles to fly. And so even talking about the pandemic, I've told our real estate agents, like, the ones that are going to go through what we're in right now with our market being down 25%, those are going to be the ones that come out really well refined. And a lot of people are just going to quit, right? Because they remember the easy days 2 or 3 years ago. And so I think it's definitely a refinement.
It's so funny. And then you have those people that they see others doing well and they talk shit because within themselves, they know they're not not achieving those things because they're not living to their fullest potential.
Yeah.
You know, and then you see they're like, oh, well, blah 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 blah. I'm like, yeah. You know, we're all like.
But
you
then
said,
but then it even goes back. This is why I think everybody listening should go and do that assessment with the primal questions, because to have to justify why you're successful or not successful, it's being fed by one of those questions.
What do you define success as at this point in your life?
For me,
because I know it's shifted. I'm sure.
Good question. You know, I was at in 2015, 2016, had two kids, a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old at the time, I believe, and my wife was pregnant with our third, and I had to make some changes because I was getting burned out. I just knew if I kept going down the path I was going, I was going to lose my family. I was going to my wife would be bitter towards work, and so I made changes. You know, so some of those things that I adopted early on was that I wasn't going to work on weekends. That I was going to be home at a normal time every day, and I still do that. You know, I'll be at home today. You know, most days. Maybe in the past month, I got home at 5 p.m. once. Yeah. I'm usually there at 4:30. Yeah. And I don't work on the weekend. I don't even have that capacity to work on the weekends. I don't have a computer at my house that lets me work. My son has a PC, but I'm a Mac guy, so I don't even know. I tried to get on the other day and couldn't even create a PDF, so I just gave up. But yeah, so I think that I think success, man, success is really has to do with you know, the just the joy I have in my life. You know, I think that I like to, you know, like one of the things is me and my wife, starting around that time, we started traveling a lot. And so we still travel all the time, you know. I mean, like, we have a trip planned in March. We have one in April. We'll go on family vacation in May. We have our anniversary trip in July. And every single weekend we get a babysitter. And it's nice. My son's old enough to babysit now. That saves us about $75 a weekend. But we do a date night every single weekend. And those are just, man, that's really it. You know, and that's really the crazy thing about being self-employed and being an entrepreneur and being, you know, people get into real estate, right? Because we want freedom and we want money. Well, majority of people that think that way, they get into it and realize it's anything but that, right? They're working twice as much and they're not making near as much money. And so man, that's a good one. How to define success, you know? I mean, I think that a lot of it is just going to be how my kids how they view life and how they go through life. I mean, that's what brings me joy. So I guess living a joy-filled life would be successful for me. Yeah. And so seeing that and just parenting brings me a lot of joy. You know, getting to spend time with my wife and new adventures, and we just have a long list of places we want to go, and you know, and I've made a lot of changes since then. You know, I've lost weight. I went through a couple really tough surgeries because I was like, look, I'm 40 years old and I want to do these things. Yeah. And so I'm going to try.
You had some major injuries.
So, but it was just like because I wanted to do things. It's funny because my 10-year-old who's about to turn 11. Last week came to me and he's getting made fun of at school because he can't get on YouTube. We don't let him on YouTube. And he's like, well, when can I start getting on YouTube? And, you know, and I just told him, I said, look, there are things I want to do every single day that I'm not allowed to do.
That's a good analogy, I guess. Yeah.
Because I have a vision of who I want to be as a person. Yeah. And I just told him, I said, man, you know, there are things on YouTube that you're just too young to see right now, and that's going to shape who we want you to become and who you want to become and who God wants you to become. And so, you know, I was kind of preaching to myself, reminding myself, like, there are just things in light of where I want to be and what I want to see happen. You know, there's just things. So part of that's having the right people in my life, you know, telling me the right things. I told him he needs to get new friends. They're making fun of him.
Yeah, man. If they're like, yeah, but I mean, dude, being a kid's a tough man thing. You got to think of all the shit you got shamed for, and it completely out of your control. Like maybe you didn't have some money to have a Game Boy, and everybody had one. Or, you know, just any weird shit, or your shoes were horrible. I grew up that way. I'm sure you did too.
yeah.
Like, so we never really wanted for anything. We had what we needed.
Yeah.
But there was always those people that had a lot. You know, we just had the bare minimum. But I think I viewed success as like something I used to view success as was like money and access.
Yeah.
That was my thing. Money and access. I have money, have access to everything, do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it's slowly shifted over time. And it's because I found someone I want to spend the rest of my life with, have kids now. You know, it's like I'm now defining it more as like joy and peace.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. You know, it's like I enjoy time with them. I enjoy time with my wife and my kids. And I enjoy the peace of I don't even know how to explain it, but I've just found peace. Like I'm unbothered, man. I'm so unbothered.
Yeah.
Like nothing bothers me anymore. Like it's very hard to explain to people. They get an uproar about this or that. And I'm just like we're going through some transitions with the new business and stuff like that. And people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you know, this is, I'm just like, look, man, I don't even care. I'm just going to, I'm going to persevere, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think that we have a culture that defines freedom. The freedom that's being defined by culture is anything but freedom, you know?
Yeah.
Freedom isn't having all the money and access you want. Right, because then you gain things that you don't want to lose. Now you're a slave to those things, right? And so like it's anything but freedom.
Yeah.
And I think that freedom really comes through being known, right? And that's another thing too, man. This is just another thing I've been weighing on. I can't remember who said it to me, but we as humanity, we were not designed to have as much connection.
Oh no, most definitely.
That we have.
I've had that conversation.
And we have too many people have access to us.
We were designed to be tribal.
Yeah.
Like we had
our
a
neighbors,
group of individuals that we stuck to, and we fought the other individuals to stay alive. Like it was a matter of life or death.
And now literally we have put pressure on ourselves through social media mainly to impress all these people who guess they don't care.
And yeah, we want to be so interconnected that we take their life and make it our ideology and mission. It has nothing to do with us, and we lose focus of who we are because we tie ourselves to some type of initiative that's going on that's probably created by some other thing to try to break us down, and that's what it's doing inherently. You know what I mean?
Well,
and not to get on like a conspiracy thing, but just like a look at it. Everything's by design, and people are so foolish enough to think that like it doesn't matter if so and so called someone something. Like who gives a shit? Like just do the best you can do.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think that for me, one of the things that I've worked through, and this has really come through through going to therapy, is who has access to you. And that's been a big deal for me because being a 7 on the Enneagram, like I want everybody to like me.
Right.
I want to be wanted. That's
Are you
my
saying
primal
giving
question.
too many people access to you?
Yeah, too many people have access to me.
Okay.
And so
but why is that? Does that make you become easily like? What is that? What's the downfall of that? I guess in business, not so much in personal.
In business, too many people having access to me. I know that based off of my personality, certain information is going to trigger me and send me into the scramble.
Okay.
Right? Okay. And ultimately, it doesn't matter.
So this is about your well-being, not theirs.
It's about, correct.
But not to say that anyone can't at any time approach you with an
Well,
issue
there's
or
two
question.
things that had to happen, right? One, I had to replace myself to give the people underneath me someone they can go talk to. Mm-hmm. But the second thing I had to do was I had to train the people around me to be filters, you know. And so I was this summer, one of my therapy sessions, I mentioned how I had heard something that really bothered me, and my therapist Clint, who's been on your podcast,
Clint's awesome.
He said, well, why did you even hear that information? I said, well, so and so told me, and he said, well, why did you let him tell you? And I said, well, I probably wanted him to at the moment. And he just said, man, you have got to tell the people around you what they can say to you and not.
Okay.
What belongs in your head and doesn't belong in your head. Because that is just a distractor for who you want to be. That is an irrelevant instance that was told
You're just
to
taking
you.
control of what information it is that you take
Correct.
in.
Just today.
Just regulating.
Yeah, so like Jeremy, who's newer to my team, he's a great guy. And Friday, we're literally, me and my wife are on the way for our date night. It's 6:30. And so now 3 years ago, I would have answered it and had a 30-minute phone conversation with him about business. Right. But I texted him, I said, is it urgent or can it wait? And he responded literally with a text message that like you had to like extend 3 times with stuff, right? And so I had to call him this morning and say, hey, listen, unless it's like a super emergency, if I don't need to know or if I can't solve this problem right away, then let's wait till Monday. Because I know myself, and myself is when there's a problem, I want to fix it. And if I can't fix it, then it's going to bother me.
Yeah.
And so it's just setting those. And look, and it's not a saying, hey, I'm just too good to listen to you or whatever.
No.
And in fact, he was like, dude, all that could have waited till Monday. He's like, mine was the opposite. It was Friday, and I just wanted to get it out of my head. Yeah. And I said, well, you know, you gave it to me. Yeah. And so anyways, so it's just, you know, I just think that that's who it is. You know, I was coaching an agent the other day, and I said, and I just told her, you know, I said, look, you needed to define the 2 or 3 people around you that you're going to let in. There's too many people that are getting into your head.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And, you know, for me, it's the 2 questions I ask. So if I'm going to value their opinion or let them have a say into, or if I'm going to give any weight to their opinion, they need to be, there's so many ways I could say this, but they need to be a growing, healthy, mentally stable person, right? And so that's 1. And then 2, they need to have my best interest at heart. Like they need to care for me and my success. And that's like a handful of people. There's not many. Yeah. And those are the people that I'm going to listen to their criticism. I'm going to let them in. I'm going to value what they have to say. But everybody else,
it's hard to find those people too, man.
Well,
it takes a lifetime almost to find a.
Well, I think those people are there. I think that again going back to controllables, I think that for us it is having those hard conversations and saying, hey, in light of where I want to be, I need the right people around me. And so, you know, I call them my defenders, right? And so if they hear something about, oh, Leighton did this or said this or whatever, they know everything about me, and they can say, "Hey, you know what? That sounds like something Leighton would do." You know? You know what? Hey, did you know this about Leighton? What he's doing to become better and to help him in that, right? And so it's like, does that make sense?
Yeah. Instead of, I thought you were going to go the other way, like they're going to take up for you, but no, they're going to elaborate on why it is you are who you are and back you up, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah,
it makes sense though.
Yeah, and so that's where that's just the kind of stuff that I enjoy, and I have a long way to go, and I still go to therapy, and I have a business coach, and I just have a lot of people that can speak life into me, and they can, you know, help point out areas that I need to work on, and it's great. So.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's a. Well, I've been on the other side of it, and I've known you for a while now, but you were already ahead of me in anything before when I met you. But it's just been cool to be, you know, alongside, you know, just watching this journey of how you've developed and what y'all have done. Because I mean, dude, you're probably the most well-read person I know as far as like always reading books and always studying things and always talking about stuff. Like, whereas, dude, I don't read anything. Like, I listen, you know, I don't read. I can't read. I'll fall asleep. I just can't. But
What's reading the right stuff?
I think the best way for me to consume is conversation. I listen to other conversations, and that's how I consume.
Yeah, sure.
I don't get anything from, and I try, man, I really do, and I try to force myself to like read stuff and listen to stuff, but I just get way more from paying attention to people. Yeah. Like that's just me. Like, and I know that, and I'm aware of that, so I just try to pay attention to more conversations. Like, this is an interesting person to me. I want to see how he conversates with this other person, and what information, you know, comes out of that, and how I can, you know, suck that in, I guess, you know.
Yeah, it just needs to be the right people. You know,
right.
I think that's the thing too. And but yeah, man, you know, being a leader is being a learner. And so however you learn, you know, whether that's whatever it is, right? And you know, and I've made a distinguish, you know, for the longest time, and I still have people around me that view this, is that I can only be coached by someone who's been where I want to go. Yeah. And to me, there's a difference between a coach and a mentor. And mentors can be really successful people in your industry that you can look up to, pick their brain. But a coach is, you know, shining light on your dark spots, and they don't necessarily need to know the industry. They just need to know you and how you operate and how you click, and they can ask the right questions, you know. And so I think that both of those are very important to have. But
yeah, man, look, dude, I think We could keep going on and on and on.
Where
bro.
we at? What time is it?
Oh, we're good. We're over an hour.
We're
but
about to. So you want to talk about our
let's
podcast?
talk about it, dude. Let's get the plug because by the time this comes out, you're first. You'll be coming right behind it.
Really?
So,
Okay. So I'm starting a podcast with Josh Johnson. He's been on here.
Yeah.
So
Josh been
put
on.
that in the notes, whatever episode he was on. And Josh, it's funny. Me and Josh actually played basketball against each other in high school.
Okay.
And we reunited, 20 years later almost, and through church, and then that quickly just became a business relationship that he runs a very successful business, a very sharp mind, and anytime we get together it always turns into business, and we're just cutting up laughing and helping each other, sharing stories, and all of that. And so every time we would do that for the past 2 years, we're like, man, we really need to start a podcast. This is good stuff people need to hear. And so we're starting the podcast called Bizzie Smalls, and it is all about small business, owning a small business. And so if you are a manager of a small business, an operator of a small business, you own a small business, it is we are not like, hey, we read this book and this is how you should run a small business. It is like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with this week running a small business.
Yeah, I'm excited about it, man.
Yeah, so we're excited about it, and it should be good.
Yeah, we'll definitely. Yeah, by the time this comes out, then that episode, your first episode, should be live. Hopefully.
All right. Well, I went and liked it on Facebook today. I was the first one. It doesn't have a logo.
Well, I love what you guys are going to be doing because different than me. Like I know we talked a little bit about business. Probably a lot more than I expected about business. But because I respect you in business, I want to talk about it. Whereas a lot of times I don't have those business conversations. But there's not anyone. It's just hard to find. You can go listen to a podcast about business, but you can't relate to that a lot of times because it's someone so successful that you may see that as like, oh man, we're not having the same struggle because their platform is so much larger, their client base is so much larger, whatever it may be. Whereas you guys have been in the industry from the ground up from what you're specialized in, so you can talk about those things and walk people through those scenarios. And it's something that's ever changing too. It's not like content you put out like as economy changes and market shift, you're going to continue to have new content to come out that's going to be relative to right then, and absolutely. Some stuff that's going to hold, stuff that's going to hold that, that's great advice and great information that people need to hear.
And I just know this, that me and him getting in the same room and talking about business for an hour or two every week is going to help me.
Yeah, there you go.
So whether it helps anybody else, it's going to help me.
It's a win-win. But I will tell you that you'll be surprised that you'll start. I promise you, because I know you are. It's like you start doing this, and people will come to you and say, "Man, thank you." And you're just like, "Okay, well, the week you want to skip because you got shit going on, you'll realize that you don't want to skip because you know that someone's subscribed and depending on you to drive them through that next week. You know what I mean, or whatever it may be."
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I think we're both excited about doing it, so should be pretty entertaining.
Hell yeah, dude.
What other questions you have? You anything non-business related?
I was just hanging out. I don't even know. You want to talk about mushrooms? No, man, I don't know. I hadn't had any lately, but whatever. No, man, I don't really have anything, bro. I just wanted to catch up with you.
What's going on, kids? So your kids are how old?
8 and 9.
8 and 9. Yeah. So my daughter is 8. I knew they were close to the same age.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that's a 100. Like that's one thing that you brought up. Like I've been for the past 3 years making sure I'm done with my day by 3 p.m. every day.
Yeah.
So I can be home and get them off the bus. And that's been my life. And fortunately now my wife's about to quit her full-time job and come to business with me.
Yeah.
This week, which is exciting.
Yeah.
So that'll be nice for me to get some longer days, but also still reconnect. Like I guess more hyper focused with all of us together. Whereas we were kind of splitting the schedules and stuff.
Yeah, and I do, man. I feel that that's a big struggle, with business owners and family and that rub, right? Because I think that early on, it was I want to build a business that I can leave to my kids,
right? Yeah.
And so then it's almost you're like justifying not being present in their childhood. And then how many stories have we heard, right, of people taking over the family business and it implodes in a year or two, and there's no relationship there, and the siblings don't get along, and all this stuff, right? So now I'm just like, this money I'm making off this business, I'm spending it on me.
Yeah.
You know, they can look. I mean, they're getting them a good education that they
Yeah,
can.
man.
I'm going to put them through college, and then they can figure it out on their own. But yeah, you know, I'm going to be using this money to go travel the world.
That's what I want to do, bro.
Yeah.
That's what I told her. So we get those kids up into high school, and like I just want to take a fucking 5-year road trip and just hook a camper up and just go go everywhere we can in the United States. And then when we get done with that, then we'll be too tired to do any of that anymore. Then we'll get on planes and go to the rest of the places.
Well, that's crazy too. You know that's really one of the biggest benefits from the pandemic was forcing businesses to change, right? You know, and I knew when we started our brokerage in 2017, I wanted to be paperless, right? And so we don't have a file cabinet in the whole building.
And you're one of the you're one of the probably first ones to do that, even with your company, because your company's like, I'm sure, I mean, y'all are up on the up and up, but also like the way you launched that, I remember you telling me that. You're like, I want to be efficient, I want systems in place, I want to be able to run this thing from anywhere. And I was like, that's something that most people in the region we're in weren't thinking about at that time. Yeah. They were just stuck in the
So when
processes.
the pandemic happened, I mean, we were working from home in an hour. You know, I mean, that's just what we did.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so I think that's really given people the business owners and just people like we can really work from anywhere. I mean, with the right processes, you know. And I'm about to take another one of my management company, actually managing 450 houses. We're about to take it remote to where
that's going to be interesting because I guess it makes sense. I mean, why not?
Yeah, well, the technology's there, right?
Now,
and so
right?
Here, and there's a local credit union that I think is great that I use, and I'll give them a shout out, Carter Credit Union.
Okay,
and you walk into their beautiful offices or their complexes and go into the lobby, and there's nobody in there. You go up to a kiosk, and a video pops up, and you're talking to someone, and they're talking to you. They're walking you through. They like send the drawer out. You put it in. They take the thing. Like even if it's just a deposit, like they can see what you put in there. I mean, it's pretty crazy. You can apply for a car loan on the kiosk. And so like it's pretty nuts. So I was thinking, I was like, you know, why can't we be doing that with management? You know, so that's kind of the thing.
I get it. Yeah. I still like that personal feel, but it is nice. Like I guess it just depends on where you want to like put those processes in place. You know?
Yeah. Well, I think that as a business owner, I'm looking at
efficiency.
How can we be most efficient?
Yeah, efficiency.
Exactly.
And that's what you're great about.
We have 400 tenants.
Yeah, dude, it becomes extremely inefficient, and you're like trying to get money here and you get money there, and you're trying to drop payments off the wrong times and all that. Yeah, I can only imagine, man. I mean, I get it. I would want that to be streamlined. The first thing I want that to do is be streamlined.
Yeah. So, So I started playing basketball again.
Well, first off, everyone needs to know that you had your Achilles tendons both cut and like trimmed. What happened?
Yeah.
Explain what that process.
So
what is
this? You know, they say it could be hereditary, but it's called a Haglund deformity, and it forms on the back of your heel, and it can be formed by wearing like tight shoes, like an external. But mine was actually formed because my Achilles was so tight; it was rubbing on my heel bone, and it was just forming a callus, like a knot, really a bone spur, and it was about the size of a golf ball. But to be able to go work out or play basketball or anything, I would probably have to stretch for 2 hours, and then I would probably only make it 30 minutes before it inflamed, and then it would take me about 4 or 5 days to recover. So so I had my first one. Actually, my first one, I actually ruptured it playing. I was working out. What's the Camp Gladiator? Yeah, I was doing some drill I shouldn't have been doing. I ruptured it, and so I had that one pretty quick. And then the other one I actually planned, so they took my Achilles off, they detached it, they removed the bone spur, and they screwed it back in. Then they went into my calf muscle and lengthened the Achilles.
So what was that recovery process per leg?
Let's see. So I did them 2 years apart, but the recovery. So the first 5 weeks is non-weight bearing. Okay. And so so no walking. So my wife is a trooper with 4 kids. You know, and when I had my first one, I ruptured my first one. Our youngest was only a couple of months old. Yeah. And so it was pretty bad. And then so about 6 weeks, then Really, it's a full year recovery for your 100%.
Yeah. Anytime they cut something and reattach it, like I went through that with a tendon. That my tendon was detached from my pec, and they had to reattach it to my bone under my bicep, and it was a year. It was a year, dude, and I'm still to this day not 100%. But I mean, you have full mobility?
Full mobility, no
do you
pain.
feel better now? Like no pain
at all.
So,
and so what was happening though is because of those, I wasn't able to build muscle and do the workouts I wanted to. I had to adapt everything.
You couldn't be under stress at all.
And so then what's crazy is when I finally didn't have foot pain for the first time in 10 years, I started playing sports as quickly as I could. And then my knees started hurting. But what I found out, the reason why my knees were hurting is because my leg muscles were underdeveloped because of that injury. Because of those injuries. And so I had to do some physical therapy. And Stuart, you turned me on to Stuart.
Yeah, Stuart's
so
awesome,
I've been seeing Stuart for 3 years now. I go to him 3 days a week, and it's really just beefed up physical therapy type stuff. I mean, squats, resistance stuff, working hips, legs. All of that, and so I do need to do more cardio. I played basketball for the first time a couple weeks ago, and it was I was winded. I was like, dude, this is half court basketball. I shouldn't be this out of breath.
Yeah, but you're not winded on other exercises. That's what's interesting about working out. It's like you can come in shape, and like it's just like kind of like when I tell people like I'd go do CrossFit or I go box and be in shape and then do CrossFit and almost die. Or go to jiu-jitsu and be in shape and then go to CrossFit and almost die. Like it's just there's so many different like layers of being in shape, right? You can't hit all of them, but the fact that you're doing something and you can now, like you didn't like say fuck it, I'm not going to do anything, and I'm not going to, you went through the whole process. Like one, you have to do the surgery, but also you have to go through you get the pain to get there, do the thing, then rehab, but then use it to do something with, not just use it to get out of pain. Now you're actually wanting to do things after you've circumvented that, Yeah,
and so it's crazy is now we're talking about this is kind of mind-blowing, but for me, this is my health journey. 2 years ago, this past January, I had my second foot done. And I remember the Super Bowl was the Bengals were playing. I don't remember who they were playing, but I remember Joe Burrow was playing. I think they lost. The Chiefs, maybe. I don't know. Who knows?
Josh,
so
2 years
I
ago,
don't
Super Bowl Bengals.
It was Chiefs and Bengals.
Yeah. Okay. So I watched that game and I told my wife I just felt like just gross. I had been in the bed for 5 weeks and I was about to start walking, and I was like I couldn't really stand on the scale because I couldn't put pressure on both feet, but I was somewhere around 400 pounds, and I was like, all right, I'm done. And so for the next year, really all I ate was meat. For the most part.
How do you feel about that? Are you like an activist for that, or you kind of just that work?
Well,
for you?
it was hard at first because I was just so used to carbs, right? So I had preparation and I just had to plan a lot, and but yeah, so I lost somewhere between 80 and 90 pounds in that first year, and it's crazy is because that was my first year on it. In the past year, I haven't lost any more weight, but clothes wise and pictures wise is huge because I'm still building muscle.
Right. Well, you're not you're not inflamed.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're not holding water, but you're losing. But you're not like your size isn't diminishing.
And now I'm not as strict. I mean, obviously, if we go out on a date, or if she cooks a vegetable, I'll eat some vegetables, or if we,
Why did you choose carnivore though? What made you choose that? Like, did you do a bunch of research and just make your mind up?
I'm probably the best expert on diets. I've been on all of them. I've actually lost weight on all of them. Yeah, I remember being on Weight Watchers losing.
I've seen you do a couple.
I've done a bunch of them, and so for me, it's just having a plan. For me, and this is just for me, but one, I just enjoy meat and steak.
Yeah.
And then second, it was the easiest for me to just kind of prepare. And so it's funny. For the past year and a half, I've eaten Wingstop almost every day.
Yeah.
I just order it from my app. I get their dry rub wings. I get 10 of them, and I just eat them.
Yeah.
And back to it. And so I was just losing weight, eating wings. And at night, it's usually steak most of the time.
Yeah. So red meat and chicken.
Yeah.
So for me, dude, I'd say I did strict hardcore carnivore for probably a good year and a half, maybe 2 years. And then I went to when I swapped over from just lifting and just being, doing whatever to doing all this CrossFit stuff, I started having I was like, man, my recovery's not there. I'm still I don't know, I'm sore. I'm not getting enough energy right before my workout. So I started adding in fruit. And so now I'm 80% meat and then 20% fruit and some nuts for fat. You know, that's kind of where I'm at, and that's what's worked most. Like across the board, I guess if I've done cut 50, 60 pounds in months for fights and doing all these things and doing high carb, low carb, you know, all this shit. Like for me, like 80% carnivore, 20% like fruit, vegetable. Not no vegetables. I don't really hardly do vegetables. I do take a green shake every morning. I'll do like Jocko greens. Athletic greens are good too, but Jocko's cheaper, so I like those. So I do those every morning just to get the roughage, to get those nutrients, but not get all the, you know, everything else that comes with them, like all the carbohydrates. So it works for me, man. Yeah. And so I'm a proponent of the carnivore thing, but like it just depends on, I guess, how much output you have. I don't think it's sustainable if I'm doing 2 workouts a day and working out 4 hours a day and I'm extremely high output. You know, I think that I had to add in, that's why I had to add in those things. And so for me now, like I'll notice like on really like when we kill ourselves, especially in the middle of the summer when it's 100 degrees and your output's like your heart rate variability is like weird and your output's like 159 to 170 beats per minute for a solid 30-45 minutes. I've had to add those in like for like the replenish, you know, the sugars tied to the to the fiber and stuff. You know?
Yeah, I actually coupled mine with intermittent fasting.
Dude, I did it. I loved intermittent fasting.
I was doing carnivore and I was eating between 12 and 8 every day.
Intermittent fasting works great. I remember when you started that now that you said that. Yeah. I loved it. I did that too for a while. I loved it. But what I was bad about is I was still fucking drinking. I would really throw it off. Like I would fast on my food, but I would still drink. And like I would get way more benefits if I didn't drink, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I think that's
I've been better about that too. Yeah, I've been better about that too. Like, but isn't like now I notice I don't drink as much. And if I just do it, I mean, this is probably the first one I've had shit really in a while, and like if I just do it like sparingly and not like every like 2 or 3 times a week, then I feel so much better and I can see more result, more definition, less inflammation, sleeping better, no water retention, you know. But I don't know, man, but I'm happy for you, dude. That's good.
It's exciting. I was excited to play basketball. That was that's what I played from, you know, 3rd grade all the way through college. Really, I played every single day, and so it was nice to go back and play with no pain. So,
well, hell yeah! So that's you're doing that, a little bit of weights, like hyper focused weight stuff, and basketball.
Going on walks. You know, me and my wife. I mean, the plan would be to go on 2 or 3 walks a week on the days I don't work out and just walk around the neighborhood. So
no half marathons coming up or anything?
I mean, I'd be game. You know, that might be a goal.
Oh yeah,
sure. Yeah, we went this. We went to Asheville, North Carolina this past summer, and we went and hiked and looked at some waterfalls and stuff. We had a tour guide and stuff, and you know, I mean, it was just stuff I couldn't have done. You know, and just being able to have the surgeries and build up the leg muscle, I was able to do that. And you know, one of the Stuart, one of the main things he made me do every single day, and still I did them this morning, was resistant hip thrust with resistance, you know, resistant band, and I just hate doing them. And and so then this past October, we went back to Disney, and last time we had gone to Disney, I had only had 1 foot surgery, and I was just out of shape. And this time, I mean, I just rocked it, you know, 16 miles a day or however much. So I said, hey, we're changing the name to Disney Thrust. But yeah, that's it. You know, I want to be able to, you know, do stuff with my kids and play sports with them if I need to, and go on vacations and trips. I don't want to be, you know, I mean, when I went on vacations growing up, my dad was so exhausted from working, we just rested.
Yeah, it's like they go on vacation and watch TV the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and so for me, it's like we took the kids to the Grand Canyon, and you know, this summer I think we're taking them to Colorado, and so we just wanted to do that. Well, I told Laura, you know, because we keep talking about, well, should we do an all-inclusive thing? And we've done those before, but I'm like, let's save those for when we're like 60, you know?
Yeah, when you don't want to do anything.
Exactly.
You know? Like now, it's like if you can move, do it, man, and utilize that. But no, it's good that you bounced back, dude. I knew you had all it, and I guess I just on a scale like I hadn't. We don't catch up enough to really know how long it's been, but it's been that long, and all that recovery over that shit.
Crazy.
But yeah, dude, it's good. It's a good thing, bro.
It is
all
good
things.
It is. Yep. And that's it. And part of that's just having accountability. You know, I'm just big on having people, you know, that I've set up to hold me accountable, and that's why I go to Stuart, because if it was left up to me, I would talk myself out of working
Stuart's
out
awesome.
every single day.
I love
right?
Stuart, and I referred him to you too because I love Stuart because he has an old school approach, but he's very aware.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the key answer to everyone's issues is most people aren't body aware.
Yeah.
And they don't. Like the answers and the tools are everywhere.
Yeah.
But most people don't want to do it because they're lazy, right? But like once you become body aware, okay, like and a lot of that takes a lot of discipline. And that's why we were talking about accountability earlier. I stray on the side of discipline versus accountability because people are like, you must be motivated to do that every day. I'm like, fuck no, I'm not motivated.
Yeah.
I'm disciplined. I make myself do it. Like there's a lot of times I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But I know that the end result is an hour, even half an hour of me being uncomfortable leads to another 23 hours of me feeling great. Why the fuck wouldn't I do that? Versus like, just like drinking for 2 hours leads to 12 hours of feeling like shit. Like weigh those. Look at it. 30 minutes of discomfort for a day of feeling great. 2 hours of comfort for a fucking day of feeling like shit. Like what?
Yeah. Well, that's why for me, it's just, I have a set time with him 3 days a week at 8:15 because I know that if I start working, I'm going to be distracted. Yeah. And so I drop the kids off. I go straight to the gym. I knock it out, and then I start my day. And so that's kind of how I have to do it because I don't understand the people that work out in the afternoons or at nights. I'll talk myself out. I'll spend all day coming up with reasons why I shouldn't be going to work out.
I do it now, but I've done the morning things. The morning thing's great. I've done the morning things like I've done the 5 a.m. There's something about those, and you may have to try it one day, like at the house. Or I don't know if you ever have, but like waking up and doing it before anything else starts happening, before emails start pinging or the family's up. Like if you can get up and come back home and everybody's still asleep, it's crazy because then you're like, oh shit. And then if you want to do it again later that night, you've already damn near recovered. We can do something different, But that's a whole nother level of discipline. But it is nice, man. It is nice to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a. Yeah. I need to.
Dude, but let's wrap this thing up. Bizzie Smalls, his new podcast will be out here soon. By the time this thing comes out, hopefully that'll be up and running.
Yeah, and we'll be what platforms it'll be on? Spotify.
They're gonna be on everything, bro. Apple, YouTube, Spotify, Facebook.
We're on Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah. You can be on all the things, bro.
And so, one of the things we want to do on there is really build a community around it. And so for any local business owner or really business owner anywhere, we want your input. Like we're going to like take some questions and answer them on our podcast. Some kind of real life.
That's important where you're not just all giving your opinion, but you're actually giving some feedback.
Exactly.
I think that's going to be important.
Well, and our insight, and sometimes it might be good insight, sometimes it might be bad. And so we'll just share, like if you ask a question, I'll say, this is how I'd handle the situation. Not saying I'm right or wrong. But that's just how I would handle it, and
hell yeah.
So we'll see how it works out. So
all right, bro, let's wrap this thing up.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Yep. See ya.